Revenge films.
I was living as a happy family of 4 with my husband, my son, and my daughter. My son is in the 8th grade and my daughter is in the 3rd. This was my first marriage, but when I met my husband, he already had a son who was 1 year old at the time. But his son was still very young, and since I had raised him from when he was a little boy, I had the same love for him as I do my own daughter. However, we lost my husband suddenly due to an accident. When I received the call, I was so shocked that I dropped my phone to the floor. Losing my husband was the most painful thing I had experienced, and the tears wouldn't stop. But then I saw my son desperately holding back his own tears as he was holding and comforting his little sister. And I realized that I needed to pull it together for them. I still couldn't believe that my husband was gone, but with the help of my son and my parents, we were able to complete the funeral. I thanked my parents and my relatives who helped, and as I was rushing to wrap up, in the corner of my eye, I caught my son standing in front of my husband's casket, alone, crying. When I saw that, this is no time for me to be crying. This is no time for me to be upset. I have to stand strong so that I can be a mother and a father to our children. With that in my heart, I decided that I would be the last person to cry. I was already working, and my husband's life insurance was also given to our family, so we didn't struggle financially. It was hard to be in the same space that my husband was no longer in. But I also didn't want to let go of this house that was full of our memories, so I decided not to sell it and try to stay here. And so my life with my children as a single mother started. But since my son was already in the 8th grade, I was able to leave my daughter in his care. When I would get home from work.
Hey, Mom, I made dinner, even though it's just curry.
What? No way! That's a huge help.
Kelly and I already ate. Do you want me to heat it up for you?
Maybe I'll go take a bath first.
Mommy, I already filled up the bathtub for you so you can get in straight away.
Thank you. Well then, I'll be quick. Even though they had just lost their dad, my son and my daughter did their best to help me. There was no way that they weren't sad after what happened, but I could tell that everyone was trying their best to move forward and do their best as a family. And one day, after coming home from school, my son locked himself into his room, and I got a little worried, so I tried talking to him. My son tried to say something, but then he quickly said it was nothing and pushed me away. I got worried that maybe something might have happened at school, and especially since he was studying for his high school entry exams. I thought that maybe he was flustered with some schoolwork, but I decided to leave him alone until he wanted to come talk to me about it himself. But then a few days later, one of my daughter's friends invited her over to a sleepover, so I was left alone at home with my son. Just as I was thinking about what to make for dinner, suddenly Thomas came to me as if he was going to start crying, and I was shocked by the words that came out of his mouth.
I found out that I'm not your biological kid, Mom. But I'm still just a middle schooler, so please, let me stay in this house until I graduate.
He said as he put his head down to me. His words sent me into a panic, and without thinking, I raised my voice. What are you saying? Who told you such a thing? Thomas was really small at the time, and when his father got remarried, I raised him as if he was my own son, and that's why my husband and I decided together that we wouldn't tell him. However, once he would become an adult, there would be a need to gather official paperwork for his passport and other residential needs, so we were planning on telling him around that. But then, my son was standing there in tears with his head bowed down to me, and I felt the blood rush to my head. You are my child! Biological or not, none of that matters! This house is your house! This is your home! Then Thomas looked up at me.
But Auntie said that I'm not your son, so that I would just be an inconvenience. And she told me that it was my responsibility to get a job straight after graduating middle school and move out without going to high school.
What did you say? My sister said such a thing? With tears streaming down his face, my son nodded. You idiot! After your dad died, why do you think it is that I can be so positive about moving on with our lives? It's because of you and Kelly. Because of you two, I can be strong and I feel like I have a reason to live. It may be true that you and I aren't blood related, But we are family, and I am your mom. Do you understand?
Yeah.
All right, then let's get in the shower and calm down a bit. I'll never let you leave this house after graduating. Do you hear me? While my son was in the shower, I immediately grabbed my phone and called my sister. Then,
Oh, perfect. I needed to talk to you. Next fall, my son is going to college in your state, but it's a waste to pay for the dorm, so can you just let him stay at your place? You're going to have an open room anyway, right?
stay at my place? Are you kidding me? More importantly, why did you say such a thing to my son? We were going to tell him that he wasn't my biological child when he became an adult. That wasn't something for you to tell him. And not only that, telling him to get out of the house? How dare you!
I was only telling him the truth. If your husband was still alive, that would be one thing. But he's already gone, so he may as well be a stranger's child. So I just told him the obvious, that's all.
Are you kidding me? There's no reason anywhere that that boy should have to leave this house. The first and foremost, do you have any idea how much you've hurt him? The image of my son's crying face as he bowed his head to me came into my mind, and I was furious that I was crying while yelling.
Of course there's a reason. If that boy doesn't get out, then there won't be any room for my son, right? If he lives at your place, then we don't have to pay for the dorms or for his food expenses, right? You know ours is actually properly related to you by blood. Obviously, that kid should be the one to leave.
That kid you're talking about is my son. And you hurt my son because of your own personal and selfish reasons. I'll never forgive you. And what do you mean that you can't gather the money to let your son go to college and live in the dorms? Normally, you should have been saving for things like this. And you could apply for scholarships or student loans.
Excuse me, but that would just put us into debt. Why should I have to go into debt when there's something I could use for free? Plus, after your husband died, you got plenty of comfortable insurance deposit, didn't you? And that, please, you should be using it for your family.
I won't be spending a penny on you. My husband's insurance money is something he left behind for us, for our children's future.
Why are you being so stingy when you have the money? Ugh. Regardless of what you say, once I send my son's luggage to your place, then that's your problem. You better kick that little brat out by the time he graduates middle school.
I was beyond furious by my sister's attitude, and as soon as I hung up, I called my parents and explained the situation to them. My mother was in tears thinking about what my sister had done and to her grandchild. And my father was livid and immediately called my sister and her husband to their house. My sister must not have expected me to tell our parents, and when she got to their house, the blood left her face. But the reason became apparently quick. As soon as they arrived, my parents explained the situation to their son-in-law, what my sister had done to my son, and continued.
Why hadn't you prepared the expenses for your child to go to college? As a parent, that was your responsibility to make sure you were ready. And thanks to you, our grandson is traumatized!
They were furious. Then my brother-in-law went completely pale and turned to me.
I can't believe she said something that awful! I am truly so sorry. I have no idea why my wife would say such a thing. Our son's college expenses should all be prepared since we have been investing into his education his whole life. It should all be in our family bank account.
I glanced over at my sister, who was shaking. My brother-in-law and my father turned to her.
Don't tell me that you used up your child's education fund. You're kidding. That should have been at least $30,000 in there.
I just borrowed a little bit because we were tight on family funds. That's why if he lives at my sister's house, then it would be free and everything would be even.
Huh? Even though I'm giving you plenty enough of a salary? And I'm even giving you a bonus as well?
There are a lot of things to pay on small things that just add up. There's nothing I could do.
My mom suddenly chimed in. I sure hope you haven't been going to the casino, have you? Our neighbors across the street said that she often sees someone that looks just like you at the casino.
Of course not, that's on me.
She tried, but anybody could see that my sister was lying.
You used your own son's education funds on gambling, and then because you ran out of that money, you tried to kick my grandson out of his house? You scum of the earth!
On the spot, my dad opened his palm and slapped my sister right across the face. My sister scrunched her face from the pain and cried.
Oh, that hurts.
But my brother-in-law followed.
Because of your complete trash actions, you've heavily traumatized the child! So whatever pain you're feeling is nothing compared to that!
He really did look like he was looking at a pile of trash. My sister stood there sobbing. Soon after that, my brother-in-law was fed up with her, filed for divorce, and he gained full custody of their children. My parents also disowned my sister and told her that they never wanted to see her face again. My sister was kicked out of her house, and she had to move into a rundown apartment while she figures out how to pay back the $30,000 she spent, as well as a settlement fee for both her ex-husband and me. Apparently, she's working multiple part-time jobs around the clock, 7 days a week, but she barely has enough money to pay for her own food. But that was all her own doing, and I don't even have 1 mm of sympathy of her. At home, I explained everything to my son, including why we chose not to tell him all these years. Thomas seemed relieved as his eyes welled up in tears.
Thank goodness. I didn't know what to do.
He said with a quivering voice. You idiot! You and Kelly are the most important things in existence in this whole entire world. Now promise me you'll never think anything ridiculous like that again. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I may not have grown my son inside of me like I did my daughter, and gone through the pain of childbirth with him, but he is my precious child, and that will never change for the rest of our lives. And, more than anything, Thomas looks like his late father, and I feel like he keeps me connected to my husband. That's why I can keep my head up towards a bright future with my 2 children.
My name's Amy. I live happily together with my husband and our daughter Nancy that's currently in junior high school. But considering that our daughter is older now, we were all talking about moving into a bigger place to live. My dream home was to live in a condo that had great natural light and was stylish, which is very much different to the place we lived in now. So I was more than happy for us to start thinking about moving. My husband and I both worked hard, so we didn't have much time to look for a new place. But whenever we had a moment, we would go to real estate agents and look through interior design magazines in order to get a better idea of what kind of a place we wanted to move into. Oh, this place is quite nice, but it's a little too far from Nancy's school. Even though we hadn't found the perfect place yet, I was still enjoying my time trying to find a new place for us. But one day out of the blue, my husband told me and our daughter that he found a new place for us to move into. Wait, where?
There's an apartment with a vacancy right next to my mom's house. The price was good too. So I signed the contract for a new place today together with my mom.
Wait, why did you make that decision on behalf of Nancy and I with your mom? You didn't even ask us about how we feel about that place.
Yeah, but isn't it good enough that I found a bigger place for us? Also, it's great because now we get to be closer to my mom's place.
But that's the one thing I was actually dreading. The truth is that I know that my husband's mother doesn't like me, and because of that, I'm not too fond of her either. That's why I couldn't believe what my husband had done, and I could already tell that because we'd be moving closer to his mother, that I would have to deal with seeing her more often from now on. The apartment that you're talking about, it's actually pretty old, right? I was looking into us living in a nicer new condo for our next place. I spent so much time looking hard for new places for us all this time.
A place to live is a place to live. They're all the same in the end. The place I found for us is bigger than our place here, and we'd be able to give Nancy her own room. So I don't see what the problem is.
I was still angry at what my husband had done, but because he had already signed the papers for the new place, there was nothing we could do but to move into the new place. Soon after we settled into our new place, just as I predicted, my husband's mother pretty much made herself at home at our new place. She often let herself in.
My little Nancy, I brought some cookies for you today.
Like this, Nancy's grandmother loved her and would often come to see her. And after a few months of us living in our new place, Nancy's attitude towards me completely changed out of nowhere.
Mom, you're in the way. Move. Jeez, I hate being in the same room as you, Mom. You're so gross.
What's the matter with you, Nancy? Why are you saying such things to me?
Stop talking to me, Mom. I feel like my mouth is going to rot with disgust if I have to talk to you any longer.
Like this, I couldn't comprehend why Nancy seemed to despise me all of a sudden. But I knew that around the time that she started to act like this, she had been spending a lot of time with her grandmother. Even when I suggested things like, I have next weekend completely off, so how about we all go somewhere?
Ew, no. I have plans to go out with Grandma and Dad next weekend.
Oh, well, can I join you guys then?
Hell no. Why would you even ask that?
I was shocked at what Nancy had said to me, so I tried to talk about it with my husband. But all he said was,
If Nancy doesn't want you to come with us, then we should honor her wishes and get you to stay home. Don't worry, I'll be with her, so she'll be fine.
That was his response. I couldn't understand what had happened to Nancy, and and so all I could do was cry by myself in my bedroom out of sadness and frustration. After that incident, all I could do was simply watch on as Nancy had a great time with her grandma and dad at our place. I couldn't figure out how to get into their little clique, so I decided to focus on work instead. The days went on, and soon enough Nancy's birthday came around. I decided to pick up a cake for her on my way home on her special day. I wanted to surprise her with it, but when I got home that night, no one was home. I couldn't believe that my husband and Nancy weren't home on Nancy's birthday. To find out where they were, I called my husband, only to find out that he was celebrating Nancy's birthday together with her grandma out at a restaurant without me. Why would you do such a thing? It's Nancy's birthday today. How could you organize a celebration for her without inviting me?
My mom said that she'd celebrate Nancy's birthday. That's why we're out doing that right now. Nancy also said that she'd rather spend her birthday with her grandma and not with you.
How could she? With what I had just heard, I started to feel ice cold all over. I could even hear in the background of the call, "Here you go, Nancy. Happy birthday." An unfamiliar woman's voice. "Are you there with some other woman?"
Yeah, it's just someone my mom knows. Anyway, you can go to sleep now. Don't wait up for us.
With that, my husband hung up on me. I'm Nancy's mom. How's this happening to me right now? I had tried to surprise Nancy on her birthday by coming home with a birthday cake for her, but instead of being able to do so, I was completely ignored. I couldn't take all this sadness anymore. All I could do that night was cry myself to sleep. The next day, I found that the birthday cake that I'd bought for Nancy had been thrown into the trash. Why is the cake in the trash? Nancy saw me looking at the cake in shock and said while grinning,
I can't believe you tried to win me over with such a lame birthday gift. You're so gross, Mom.
With what she said to me, I knew that she'd been the one that had thrown the cake into the trash. And knowing this absolutely broke my heart. I felt as though there was nothing more I could do to keep our family together. So I brought up the idea of getting divorced to my husband, and to that he quickly agreed and didn't waste any time signing the divorce papers. I couldn't believe that my life had come to at this point. But soon after, I found out that the truth of what had been going on. It turns out that my ex-husband's mother had wanted her son to be with a woman that she got along with. And in order to make that happen for her, she had used Nancy to get to me. That's why she'd been inviting Nancy to go out often, and even celebrated her birthday lavishly together. After she found out that my ex-husband and I had gotten divorced, she got busy trying to get everything in order for her son to get married to that other woman she got along well with. I was so sad about everything that I found out, and I was talking to my coworkers and superiors at work about what had been happening with me. Then one day, one of my superiors approached me saying, "I'd like to run something by you, Amy. We've actually been looking for one of our employees here to transfer overseas, and I thought that this would be a great opportunity for you, considering that you're such a hard worker. How would you feel about working for us at one of our overseas branches?" "Oh, wow. We'd love for someone committed and responsible like you to transfer, and since you speak other languages, that'd be a plus for us too. What do you say?" At this point, I didn't have a family of mine anymore, and my ex-husband's mother was already busy trying to get him married to some other woman. I didn't have any more reason to stay where I was, and I wanted to welcome a new challenge for myself, so I said, "Yes, I'll do it. I'll transfer." I was over the moon about this new beginning for me. Things went smoothly from there, and before I knew it, I was already off to work overseas. A year went by, and one day, a coworker of mine from back home contacted me. "Amy, how are you doing overseas?" "I'm doing great. What's up?" "I didn't know that you got divorced. I'm sorry about that." I didn't understand why she brought this up now, so I asked her what she was going on about. She then told me that she had seen my ex-husband, his mother, and Nancy walking down the street looking sickly previously. At that time, she thought that we were still married, so she greeted them. "Hello there. Nice to see you again, Amy's husband."
Oh, you work with Amy, right?
"Yes, that's right. How's Amy doing? Is she doing well recently? I haven't heard from her." To that, my ex-husband and his mother seemed to be perplexed.
Why would you ask me that?
"Because Amy transferred overseas for work a year ago to work as a new project leader. That's why I was asking how she's been. Obviously."
That woman's working overseas now, and she's a project leader?
To that, my coworker was a little confused, but then she soon came to realize that maybe we'd gotten divorced, and that's why my family seemed so confused about what she'd asked before. Then my ex-husband's mother asked her,
Amy's really working overseas now?
Yes, she is. Apparently she's doing great over there. She's working hard and making progress on her project." To that, all the two of them could do was stand there in disbelief. After that phone call with my coworker, I contacted a friend of mine back home, and according to her, my ex-husband indeed got married again to that other woman shortly after I left the country. But that woman turned out to be quite the reckless money spender, and she actually accumulated a lot of debt under my ex-husband's name. Apparently after that, she'd run away together with her parents, leaving my ex-husband to deal with the debt she'd rack up. Therefore, him, his mother, and Nancy were dealing with having to live with crippling debt. After I found that out, I got a call from Nancy. This was the first time she'd reached out to me at all since I got divorced from her dad.
Mom, I'm so sorry for the way that I treated you. I don't want to live with Dad and Grandma anymore. I want to live with you overseas.
She left that message on my answering machine, but I quickly ignored and deleted it. Soon after that, my ex-husband also called me and left a message saying,
I was wrong. Let's get back together.
and even his mother had left me a message too.
I feel like I'd now be able to accept you and my son being married again. So let's have a talk sometime soon. Nancy said she really misses you too.
It had already been a year since I left behind my family that didn't care about me anymore. I could tell that they had only contacted me at this point in time in order to get money from me. So knowing that, I quickly got rid of my old phone number and got a new one. I don't have any plans on going back to my home country, and actually, since a few weeks back, I've been seeing a new great person. So now, I really don't have any reason to go back and try and mend things with them. What they need to do is come to terms with the situation that they brought upon themselves.
At the time, I was living as an average family of 4 that you would find anywhere, with my wife and my 2 kids in elementary and middle school. However, I found out that my wife was having an affair, and so I spent a few years carefully collecting evidence until I finally got my revenge. In that time, I collected close to 100 DVDs full of video evidence, as well as other data on over 200 CDs, and enough copies of emails to make my back hurt. Most of the DVDs are footage from them doing it in the car, or going in and out of various hotels on repeat. As for the hidden cameras in the house, once I got a good grasp of their cheating schedule, I started rolling the camera for that. I think I did a pretty good job of collecting evidence secretly, and it seems like my wife didn't have a clue that I knew she was cheating on me. I had plenty of proof in my hands, and all that was left was to see when and where to drop the bomb on my wife. I figured this out while I was doing my research, that every time my wife would meet with her boyfriend, she would tell me,
I'm going on a business trip.
but in reality, she would be taking paid leave from work and having her affair with her boyfriend. That day, my wife told me once again,
The day after tomorrow, I'm going on a business trip for 3 days, 2 nights. So please, look after the kids.
my wife was in a grand old mood packing for her business trip, secret meeting. So I decided to say it right then and there. That's fine, but before you go, please, sign this paper. Because by the time you get back, I don't think anyone will be in this house except for you. When I said that, my wife flipped her head around.
What are you saying?
She was in an instant panic, but I kept my composure and coldly replied, Huh? Because you're going to see him, right? So I'm telling you that you don't need to bother coming back. Send my regards to your boyfriend. My wife stood there, frozen on the spot, unable to move a muscle. Then, as if she was talking to herself, she said,
What? You're joking, right?
or whatever nonsense. So I said, why don't you go and enjoy your trip? Because you're always going behind our backs and meeting up with that boyfriend of yours. Come on, hurry up and sign. It's easy, isn't it? All you have to do is write your name and sign.
No, you're wrong. It's a misunderstanding.
She became desperate to cover up a lie with a lie, and even rushed to delete his contact from her phone, as well as erasing all email history. But I'd already spent years collecting all of that, and transferring the data into hard copies, so there was no point anyway. In the end, my wife didn't sign the paperwork, and left her luggage as is, and simply said,
I'm sorry. I'm not feeling well today, so I'm going to go to sleep.
and as though she was trying to run away, she disappeared into the bedroom. The next morning, I spoke to her as if nothing had happened in my usual demeanor. But my wife? She was on edge the entire day. Perhaps she was scared of when I would confront her about the affair, or scared of getting divorced, but she was tiptoeing around me the whole day. Then, even on the day that she said she was going off on a business trip, she didn't leave. The kids would come home pretty late, so they weren't home yet, and I asked her, Hey, weren't you supposed to leave for your business trip today? Don't you need to hurry up and get going? Isn't your boyfriend waiting? When I said that, my wife dropped the plate in her hands, and it fell to the floor and shattered. I don't know what she said to her boyfriend to get out of the trip, or if she finally realized that I knew everything. But my wife ended up not leaving and staying in the house. Not only that, but that night, I don't know what she was thinking, but even though we hadn't done any nighttime activities over the last year or so, my wife tried to aggressively come after me. Don't tell me you think you can seduce me into forgiving you. That's far too naive. I said that to her, and I could see the blood draining from her face as she backed off of me, and she buried herself into the covers. What on earth was she thinking? If she thought that she could use her body that had been used in all directions over the years by her boyfriend to try to get me to forgive her, it was so ridiculous that I couldn't help but laugh, especially when I don't even want to look at her face. I was fully ready to end things with my wife, but I'd already planned to get justice with her boyfriend as well, so I took my time. My wife and her boyfriend were having a double affair, so of course he had a spouse on his end. On top of that, apparently, he was pretty wealthy. And through my research, I found that he even had some relatives that were very high up in society. That's why I first sent the evidence material to his family home, and then I sent something else to those powerful relatives. Not long after, the boyfriend himself was the first to contact me. Are you trying to destroy my family? Because of you, my wife is demanding a divorce! You better take responsibility for this! Oh, please. You spent years having an affair with somebody else's wife. What are you saying? I have every intention to collect a settlement fee from you. Settlement fee? As if I would pay that! You should just be thankful that I entertained that used wife of yours! Even if you don't pay it, I don't think that family of yours is going to let this slide. What? My family? I could hear the panic in his voice. That's right. I sent something separate from what I sent to your house, straight to your family's estate. And they begged that they would make sure you pay the settlement fee in exchange for allowing them to seize all of the evidence. Oh, by the way, I've known about your affair with my wife for a few years now, and I've been collecting evidence this whole time, so don't worry. I have more than enough evidence that you would never be able to sort through on your own. How? He was dumbfounded on the other end of the phone, and I knew that for people like his family, the embarrassment of one person meant the embarrassment of the entire clan. That's why I knew that even if this guy would refuse to pay, that his family would never let him take that option. Plus, I'd already researched and found that one member of his family was a very prominent city council man. It would cause a huge problem if word were to get out about his family member behaving like this. It could potentially end his career in an instant, so I could imagine that he would chase after him, no matter what. And just as I predicted, the boyfriend first said that he would never pay any settlement fee, but in the end, I had quite the large sum deposited into my account. Apparently, the entire family got together and stormed into his house, and without letting a word out of him, they cornered him into paying the settlement fee. Once I confirmed the deposit, I sent all of the evidence I had to the family home. Now that justice was served, none of it had any value to me, and more than anything, I didn't want to leave it anywhere near me anyway. They could burn it or do as they wished with it. Not only that, but as the cherry on top, I decided to drop one more bomb. In a separate package that I had sent to them, I sent evidence of him having an affair with another woman separate from my life. Normally it wouldn't matter if that guy was having an affair with some other woman that wasn't my wife, but I sent it in hopes that maybe his wife might be able to use it to get her own justice, after all of the trouble that this whole situation caused her. The reason why I sent that to the main family home instead of his house directly was to prevent the possibility of him trying to erase the evidence itself. After being confronted with all of the undeniable evidence that I had gathered, I heard his wife demanded and successfully got a divorce. As for me, I made my wife admit to the affair in her own words, and I divorced her. I gained full custody of both our children. My oldest son was already grown up, and I thought he should make his own decisions for his future, and told him everything. I didn't tell my youngest everything, but perhaps he had an idea because he said he wanted to live with me. After the divorce, my ex-wife was left all alone, and she had to pay the settlement fee to me. She tried to come begging to me.
Please, give me another chance. I promise I won't look at anybody besides you anymore. I don't want to be separated from my children, please.
I got multiple messages from her, but it was so pathetic that it only made me laugh. Not only once or twice, but betraying us over and over again, then saying she won't do it anymore after getting caught, was an even worse excuse than a child could come up with. On top of that, saying she doesn't want to be separated from her children, yet lying that she was going away on a business trip and leaving her children multiple times over the years, all while being the one who cheated on me and her whole family? How ridiculous! That's why I never replied to any of her messages. Not once. In the end, her parents found out about her affair, and they demanded that she never set foot into their house ever again. Now my ex-wife wouldn't have my salary to depend on, and she would have to find a way to survive on her own, so she wouldn't be able to quit her job either. However, her colleagues started talking about her as the woman who had an affair and was thrown out by her husband. And I got a voicemail of her crying that she was being bullied at work and suffering and begging for help. But that was none of my business. If anything, she's only getting what she deserves. Now that I was single, even though I wasn't financially worried, I was honestly worried about taking care of my family and the house. So I decided to hire a helper just a few times a week, and that solved any worries I had. My work was busy, and I had to work quite a bit of overtime. But thanks to my oldest son looking after his little brother, I'm able to continue working full-time. Of course, I was shocked that my wife was cheating on me, but I think my children were even more devastated than I was. But they're both such good kids that they would never show that on their faces. And it only makes me sure that I'll never forgive my wife for the rest of my life. My goal from now on is to help my children get over this trauma, and hope that someday, they'll both be able to laugh genuinely from the bottom of their hearts. Until then, I'm going to work hard like my life depends on it.
3 years after getting married to my husband, I was starting to think that I wanted kids soon, when suddenly one day my husband said,
My father's company is in trouble!
This came out of nowhere. What do you mean it's in trouble? Are you saying it's going to shutter?
Yeah, business isn't going well. I'm doing my best to get work, but for some reason, every month we still have losses. We have a lot of employees too, and at this rate, I think there's no other option but to lose everything.
No way. Both of my husband's parents had passed away already, though at different times, and my husband took after his father's company. When my husband became the CEO, he had asked me to quit my job, and I resigned from my old company. Hey, would you mind showing me the situation of your company?
Sure, I don't mind, but are you going to understand anything?
Yeah, I graduated with a degree in economics from college. And at my last company, I was in charge of accounting. I don't know if I'll be able to help, but...
I'll take any help I can get, even if it's from a cat. Please have a look.
On it. I looked into my husband's company situation. When I opened up the inner workings, they were taking on multiple projects that were not adding up. It was clear that they were taking on work without thinking about the cost of labor or any budget. And they were all projects that would ultimately end in losses. At this rate, it's obvious that business wouldn't go well. I put together the net profits of every project, and starting with my husband, he spoke to all his clients and adjusted the terms of each contract. Of course, because of that, it ended up with some terminated contracts. But on the flip side, he spoke with people in the sales department and started to find new opportunities. It turns out that before, even if they felt the contract was strange, they weren't able to point out mistakes to the CEO himself. Although I was the CEO's wife, I was still a beginner when it came to sales. But it was a big responsibility, so they helped me out a lot in a good way, and they started speaking up more.
Miss Sarah, I feel like the net profit of this project is a little bit low.
Really? Well, then, let's have a meeting and try to figure it out. Would you be able to organize the data and present it to us?
Sure. Miss Sarah, we got a great response from the client.
Really? I knew you could do it! Well, then, can you wrap the contract materials within a day? Then you and I can get it finalized together.
Yes!
All the employees worked hard to fill in the blanks, and the results slowly started to show. It took a year, but the company was revived back into a profitable company. If anything, it had grown into an even bigger company. All right, this quarter's calculations are looking amazing. Now the company is finally stable. It's been a while since we spent time, just the two of us. Maybe I'll invite him for a celebratory drink. After meeting with the client, I called my husband on his cell phone. Honey?
Oh, it's you, Sarah. Good timing. There was something I wanted to talk to you about.
Me? What is it?
You've really done an amazing job up until now. Thanks to you, not only has my company gotten back on its feet, it's also gotten bigger. That's why you're not needed anymore.
Huh? What are you saying?
You don't get it? I'm telling you there's no use for you anymore. So you're fired. Business is going well, and we can do this without you now.
What are you saying? I did all of this thinking I was doing it for you, and therefore for us?
You've been going around out of your lane too much. So even though I'm the CEO, everybody is all over you.
Nobody is all over me. I was helping you get your company back on its feet. That's all. How is this the conclusion?
Shut up! I'm the CEO of this company, and it's mine! I don't need your opinion anymore. Oh, and I'm going to divorce you now. So hurry up and gather your things and get out, all right?
Wait a minute! Why on earth is this resulting in a divorce?
Oh, thanks to you rebuilding this company, my income has been steadily increasing too. So I don't have to be stuck with some boring loser like you. I can get any girl that I want now.
But that means they're just going after your money. I can't believe this! I worked this hard for my husband, but as soon as the company got on the highway, I was told that I was getting let go. And not only that, but being met with a divorce. My blood started to boil. All right then, fine. Let's get a divorce. But don't come crying to me later.
Excuse me? Me? Come crying to you? Thanks to you, the company is steady. So why would I ever come crying?
And so I divorced my husband and resigned from his company. About 6 months later, I got a call from my ex-husband.
Hey you! Give me back my employees!
Huh? What are you talking about?
You hijacked my company, didn't you? You stole my employees and my clients! All of them!
Don't be so childish. That was all the employees' individual and personal decision, you know. Sure, I may have established my own company, but, they all came to me asking me for a job. That's why I hired them. Plus, those clients of yours, it's not like I stole them from you, but they came to me saying that they could trust a company run by me and these employees. That's why they signed a contract with us.
Are you kidding me? How did you possibly find the money to start your own company? You better not have taken my assets!
Before I left the workplace, it's standard practice to explain the situation to the employees, isn't it? I couldn't be so irresponsible as to just leave without saying anything. When I told them everything, the employees said that they wanted to support me. As soon as my ex-husband hit me with a divorce, I went straight to the city council for divorce paperwork, and I signed my portion. After that, I explained the situation to everyone in the company, but then they said,
But the only reason that this company was revived was because of you, Miss Sarah! And you're getting fired? I can't believe this! Seriously? And all the CEO ever did was sit around and watch. If it weren't for you, Miss Sarah, then there's no way that we would have any of the success that we have now.
Thank you all.
Well, what are you going to do next then?
After this experience of rebuilding the company, I feel like I've gotten a good understanding of business in my own way. I don't know how many years it might take, but I'm going to establish my own business and someday make my husband eat his words. I wish you all the best.
But I want to work with you, Miss Sarah. The only reason the company got to where it is today is because you were here.
Me too. If I stay with that CEO, I'm sure the same thing is just going to happen again in the future.
I'm really happy to hear that you all feel that way. But first, I need to save some money before I can start my own business. That's why it's not going to happen immediately.
Well, we can help you with that. I would like to invest in you, Miss Sarah.
Me too!
What? Hey, everyone, what are you saying? We all know that working with you is most definitely leading to success. So please, let's do it together, Miss Sarah. So the employees did actually gather the money together and made an investment to me. And that's why I was able to start my own company so quickly. Then little by little, the employees transferred over from my ex-husband's company to mine, as well as the clients doing the same, which led us to today.
The reason my company is a disaster? It's all your fault! You better take responsibility!
What are you saying? That responsibility is all yours.
Excuse me? What are you saying?
Once I was gone, somebody else was looking after the finances, And I heard that you were using plenty of company money left and right, all for your own personal enjoyment. You know that I know all of that, right? And that means that you are treating the company like your own personal bank. Isn't it obvious that that would make the employees want to leave?
What? No, that's not.
Anyway, maybe the first time was out of your control, but the second time you destroyed the company with your own two hands. And why on earth would any employee want to stay at a company like that?
Hey, wait a minute! Please help me!
After that, my ex-husband's company failed in business and went bankrupt. I heard that he was left with a very hefty debt. He did this all to himself, and the second time around was truly his own fault, so of course, there was no way I would even want to help him. On the other hand, as for me,
Miss Sarah, I got a message from the person in charge saying that they were very satisfied with the results. And that they would like us to be in charge of their new product as well.
really? That's great!
Well then, let's go there together this afternoon and have a meeting with them.
Miss Sarah, about the sample. I feel like we should maybe do it a little bit more like this.
That's a good point. But I can't make a decision on my own, so let's get everybody else's opinion at the next meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks to the employees who followed me, as well as our precious clients that supported us, work has been smooth sailing. I can't deny that my husband irritated me, but he thanked himself anyway. I'm surrounded by amazing, trustworthy work family, and I feel like I can get through anything with them by my side.
I live together with my husband and our 3-year-old son, Sean. Up until now, we lived quite a peaceful and happy life altogether. One day, even though it was a weekday, my husband had the day off to make up for some overtime hours he had worked previously. Just before I was leaving for work in the morning, I realized that our son was starting to get a fever. I know it's your day off today, but please make sure to look after Sean the best you can.
Yeah, I got it.
I'll buy Sean his favorite pudding and jelly on my way home tonight. I'll be off then. With that, I left my sick son at home with my husband, but I couldn't help but to worry about my son's health, even though I was still at least a little at peace knowing that my husband was home to look after him. The topic of why I looked so worried on this day came up at work, so I told my manager honestly about what had happened with my son, Sean, and to that she said, "If that's the case, then you can take half the day off today." She was so kind. "Oh, I'm really happy that you're so understanding of my situation, but what about this project that we're working on? You worked overtime on it last week, so it's okay if you take half the day off today. If your son still has a high fever tomorrow, we can even look into you working from home tomorrow." Thank you so much. I know your husband must be looking after your son well, but I understand that you must still be worried about him. With that, I got the day off from the afternoon and I headed back home earlier than expected that day. But once I got back, there was no one at home. I called my husband thinking that maybe he'd taken Sean to the hospital, but his phone wasn't getting any reception, so I couldn't reach him. I couldn't get a hold of him on the phone, so I decided to text him. "How's Sean? How's his fever?" After a while, he replied saying he still has a fever, so he's still sleeping at home. What's he going on about? I'm home, but there's no one here. The thing is, though, that my husband's parents' house was quite close to ours, and we would go there often, so I thought that maybe he meant that him and Sean were there. So with that, I called his parents. His mother answered the phone and said, "I heard you two are having a day off today and you're on a date together. Are you both having fun?" For a second, I freaked out hearing her say that, but then I quickly replied, "That's right, we're having a great time." I lied to her. "Sean's fever has gone down, so you both don't have to worry about him. Enjoy your date together." To that, I just thanked her for looking after Sean and hung up. I was so perplexed as to what was going on. What's going on here? My husband's not home and he also won't answer his phone. Why did he leave Sean with his parents as well? I didn't know what to do, so I waited for my husband and son to come home later that evening. After they got back, my husband was obviously taken aback by the fact that I had gotten home earlier than he'd expected.
Oh, you're back early.
Where did you go with Sean today? You know he should have been staying at home because he has a fever.
Well, you see, a friend of mine reached out to me saying that he needed to talk to me about something serious. So I had my parents look after Sean today.
I could tell that the whole story was just made up, but I knew that I couldn't let him know that I knew otherwise, so I simply said, "Okay," and pretended to be content with the answer he'd given me. Shortly after, we put Sean to bed, and then my husband said that he was off to have a shower. When he was having a shower, I decided to go through his trouser pockets. That's where I found a receipt, and it seemed as though the person he had been with had ordered sweet and fancy drinks and cakes. That seemed like something a woman might have ordered. Even if I had an inkling that he had cheated on me, I still needed hard proof to prove it. But I didn't have enough money to hire a private detective or anything. So I decided to get in contact with a mutual friend of my husband and I's in order to get her opinion on what to do. She's actually the person that first introduced my husband to me. I told her about everything that happened on this day, and to that she said,
I do feel responsible for your relationship, considering that I introduced the two of you to each other. So let's talk more about this together tomorrow night.
So with that, we decided to meet up for dinner the following night. We met up at a restaurant, and I told her in detail what had happened, and I asked for her advice on what to do next. To that she said,
Let's get my husband on this.
Wait, was your husband a detective or something?
No, but actually, I told him a little about what you told me yesterday. And then he told me that he'd be an assistant to a detective before. So he thought that maybe he could help out in terms of getting information on your husband.
No way! That'd be so helpful. I was thinking of hiring a private detective, but I knew it cost too much money, and I was afraid that if I did so, my husband would find out by looking at our credit card bills and seeing that I'd pay for such a service. So with that, I got my good friend and her husband to help me find out the truth of what had been going on with my husband. After a while, my friend called me saying,
We got undeniable proof.
With what my friend had told me, I didn't know if I was supposed to be happy or sad about this news. The evidence of my husband having cheated on me came in the form of photos that were taken of him having lunch and going into hotels with another woman. There were even photos of my husband letting that other woman into our house. I was so heartbroken. Because my husband had a lot of business trips and he would work on weekends sometimes, he was able to take days off during weekdays quite a bit. And it seemed as though he'd taken advantage of having weekdays off and would see that other woman on those days. After my friend and her husband had gotten a hold of the evidence I needed, we decided to come up with a plan to get back on my husband together. I even got in contact with my sister and told her everything that had happened, and I asked her to take Sean for a bit in order for me to execute the plan I had come up with. And to that, my sister said,
I understand. I'll look after Sean for as long as you need. Make sure to make your husband pay for what he's done to you.
With that, I saw the opportunity to get back at my husband when he had just come back from one of his business trips. My sister said that she wanted to spend some time with Sean, so I let her look after him for the next few days. To that, my husband replied,
Oh, is that so? Sounds great.
He had absolutely no idea as to what was about to happen. The next day was a weekday, so I pretended to go to work like I normally do while my husband had the day off, but actually I'd taken the day off work. And together with my friend and her husband, the three of us staked out outside my house, and soon enough, we saw the other woman come by my place. My husband led her into our place looking all excited to see her. In all honesty, right at that moment, I was so angry at him that I could have confronted him right then and there, but my friend stopped me from doing so. We waited an hour until we decided to go in. Then we made our way inside my house. I opened the front door very quietly, and we listened carefully to figure out what they were both doing at my place. And that's when we heard their voices coming from inside the bedroom. My mind went completely blank, and I honestly can't remember too much about what was happening at this point in time. But when I came around, the three of us had burst through the bedroom door and were now in front of my husband and the woman he had been seeing. The two of them were too stunned to speak. My friend's husband got to quickly record what was going on here on video, while me and my friend were shouting at my husband and the other woman. My husband must have somehow misconstrued what we were shouting at him, and for some reason, he came to think that I had only just found out about him having cheated on me right in this moment. So he said,
This only happened this once! I only just met this woman today, and we got on so well that this happened!
To this, the other woman tried to have my husband's back and said,
That's right. We just met for the first time today. You won't see each other ever again. So please forgive me for what I've done here.
She apologized. I couldn't believe she was so blatantly lying to my face. So to that, I said to her, Then how do you explain this? And then proceeded to show the two of them all the photos that my friend's husband was able to obtain of them on dates together previously. And with that, both of their faces went pale.
How do you have such photos of us? Did you have someone tailing us?
I got these two to help me, I explained. And to that, my husband just dropped his face in shame. I feel so angry and I can't forgive you for having cheated on me. But what I can't accept the most about this situation is how you treated Sean during all of this. You left him with your parents while he was sick, just so you could see this woman, right? To that, my husband looked mortified and could only say,
I'm so sorry for having done that, so please forgive me!
He was groveling to me, but I pushed him away. I have no plans of forgiving either of you, and I've already called them to get here.
You called who?
Your parents and the husband of that woman. To that, the woman started to seriously panic.
Why would you call my husband? Please tell him that it's all just one big misunderstanding. Please forgive me for what I've done here.
She pleaded, but honestly, I was having none of that. Her husband soon got to my place. He burst in through the door and said,
We're getting a divorce.
Then my husband's parents got to my place too, shortly after. When they found out that their son had actually been going on dates with another woman and not me, his father said to him,
How dare you do such a stupid thing as to leave your son that was sick and go have fun with some other woman?
And then my husband started to get bashed up by his father. After that, my husband's parents apologized to me on their son's behalf, and they took him back to their family home. The next day, my husband tried to text me, email me, and call me in order to get in touch with me, but I ignored all of his attempts to contact me. I had already told him the day before that we'd be getting a divorce and I'd never change my mind about that. His parents came back to my place the following day and apologized to me again, and they promised me that they'd do their best to help financially support their grandson until he became an adult. As for the other woman, apparently her husband had been successful in the medical industry and was quite well off, so she'd been playing around quite a lot with his money. Apparently, she'd been seeing other men apart from my husband as well. So her husband took her to court and had her pay him a lot of money in damages for what she'd done to him. After finding out that he wasn't the only man the other woman had been seeing, my husband was in shock. But to that, his father simply knocked some sense into him and told him that he wasn't in a position to be feeling sad about that. Upon getting divorced, I got my ex-husband to pay for me for the damages he caused me, child support to Sean, and I also received much of the assets that we previously owned together. I was over the moon knowing that Sean and I would be financially stable, but I also knew that it wouldn't be easy at all being a single parent. But I decided to do my best and give Sean all the love I could give him, in order for him to have the best childhood he could possibly have, and for us to have a great future together. Luckily, my good friend and my sister were living quite close to my place, so they told me, "While you're busy working, we'll do our best to support you, so go out there and do your best." I had a great support system. Apparently, after everything went down, my ex-husband is still living at his family home with his parents. But living together with his strict father and his mother, who became depressed due to not being able to freely see her grandson anymore, apparently has made him stressed and depressed too. That's what he gets for what he's done.
I'm a college student, and I live in a particularly low-income housing unit. In the apartment next door, there seemed to be an adult with a small child, but every day I could hear the child crying non-stop through the thin walls, and every time I heard the crying, I would also hear the father's yelling voice. I was always worried, thinking that it might be a case of child abuse. And that day as well. Shut up! Stop crying about every little thing, you little brat! As soon as I heard this, I also heard the child's voice wailing. I couldn't bear the thought that something might be happening to a little kid right next door to me. And one day, when I ran into the father, I reluctantly said, this is about your child, but I don't think you need to raise your voice that much. But he replied, That's none of your business. Keep your mouth out of it. And then proceeded to kick my door before storming off. The father seemed to be in his 30s, and his clothes were always ratty and dirty. The child also wore similarly worn down clothes, and anytime I would pass by them, I would hear,
Daddy, I'm hungry.
from the little boy. On top of that, I didn't know where he would go, but sometimes the dad wouldn't come home for the entire day. Those days I wouldn't hear him yelling next door, so I was somewhat relieved. But I was so worried about the child that I didn't know what to do. Is he eating proper meals? I became so anxious that I ran to the nearest convenience store, and after buying some sodas and lunchboxes, I hung the shopping bag on the doorknob. I knocked hard 3 times, then ran back to my room. Just as I got back to my apartment, I heard the next door open up, and the sound of someone going through the shopping bag that I bought. I put my ear against the thin walls to see if I could hear anything, when I heard a small voice.
Wow, this looks so good. There's a lunchbox and even a soda. But who gave this to me?
The child seemed confused, but I was just glad that he was able to get the lunchbox in his hands. From that day onwards, I would wait for the times that Dad would be gone, and started leaving lunchboxes on the door for the little kid. Until one day, when I was trying to leave the bag of food on the doorknob, I heard the door turn and was shocked to see it open.
Oh, it was from next door.
that was always bringing me lunchboxes.
Yeah. I guess you caught me. I was a little embarrassed, but I confess, I didn't know when the father would be home. So I decided to bring the little kid into my room and let him have his lunch there. Hey kid, why is your dad yelling at you all the time?
It's my fault, because I can't get food for us like my daddy tells me to.
Huh? Where are you getting it from?
The convenience store or the supermarket.
But how?
I just go and take it, but I know that it's wrong to do things like that, and I can never do it. That's where my daddy gets mad.
That's obviously your dad's own fault! If anything, you're a good kid. You're still young, but you know that stealing is a bad thing.
Yeah, but if I can't bring back anything, my daddy hits me. And then, as a punishment, he doesn't give me food either.
Are you serious? But that's wrong. No matter how you think of it, you're the one doing the right thing, kid. My blood was boiling when I heard how this man was treating his son. And just as I suspected, the little boy wasn't being fed proper meals. Hey kid, what about your mom?
Yeah, she used to be home, but one day she disappeared. She got into a fight with Daddy and left.
I see. I could only imagine that her husband was the reason she left. Even then, I was even more angry that she didn't take the little boy with her. When your dad isn't around, I'll go buy you some food, alright? And I'm also going to think if there's anything I can do about your situation.
Yeah, thank you.
That night, I immediately called my friend. That's right. It's pretty clear that in the room next door, the dad is doing something to the little kid. Our apartment building has very thin walls, so if you put your ear against the wall, you could hear every single word of a conversation. Yeah, I really should just go to the police, right? That's what we were talking about. The next day, I once again heard loud voices from next door.
Daddy, please,
Shut up! This is all your fault for causing trouble! Then I heard a loud noise, and suddenly, the child's crying came to a chilling halt. What? He stopped crying? Wait a second. That really doesn't seem good. My stomach sank, and I was panicking whether to go next door or to call the police when I heard a loud thud from the wall, as if something sharp was being shoved into it. In the next moment, a chill went down my spine. That's because I saw the head of a knife right in front of me. On top of that, through the tiny hole made by the knife, I could see cold eyes glaring right at me. Then the figure who must have been the father said, "Next time, I'm not going to take it out." I had a moment of fear wash over me with what he said, but I was quickly able to regain composure, and I called the police. Then I got out of my apartment, and I went next door and knocked on the door. "Hey kid, are you okay?" Then the father slammed the door open. "So it was you, bringing my son lunchboxes and whatever other nonsense? Because you're doing that, my son won't go steal for us. There must be something wrong with you to make your child do that. Now where's the kid?" The door was wide open, and I looked in to see the little boy passed out on the floor. "Did you hit a child hard enough to make him pass out?" "Excuse you? Shut up! This is discipline, and it's not your place to tell a parent what to do. You don't give your child proper meals, you abuse him, and then you make him go steal! You're not a parent! Move! What the hell did you just say?" I pushed him to the side and tried to run towards the child when I felt his hand on the back of my neck as he pulled me back and punched me with full force. I felt an intense pain spread across my face and into my skull. However, at that moment, I heard the footsteps of the police come running up the stairs, and by the time I turned around, the father was pinned down by the policemen. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. There's a little kid inside. Please, go help him." "I'm on it." An ambulance was immediately called, and the child was carried to the hospital as the father was arrested by the police. As he was being dragged off, "You bastard! I'm going to kill you!" he screamed. But the policemen simply said, "Be quiet!" as they disappeared from the apartment. After that, I also went to the hospital and had them take care of my cheek that was swollen up. As for the little kid, it turns out that from the impact of being hit by his father, he hit his head on a pole and had a concussion, but there was no threat to his life. The next day, first thing in the morning, I went to go see him. When I walked into the room, the little kid lit up.
Hey, it's you!
he exclaimed. Yo, kid, how's your head? You okay?
Yeah.
The boy seemed healthy, and I was relieved. From the hospital, I went to the police station, and I explained the situation in detail to the police. Turns out, they already had enough evidence, and the little kid would no longer be placed in the care of the father, and that they were currently trying to find the mother and any other relatives. That father was trying to force his child to commit a crime, wasn't feeding him proper meals, and in the end, hitting him so hard that he would cause a concussion. He was sentenced to prison without parole. That was no surprise, though. As for the kid, they weren't able to locate the mother, but they were able to find the mother's sister, meaning his aunt, who said that she wanted to take him in. His aunt's household was a rare and large family, which already had 8 children.
One more child won't change anything. Plus, the child should never have to take responsibility for their parents.
Is apparently what she said. That being said, in the event that nobody was going to take him in, the little boy would have been sent off to an orphanage. That's why I was glad that things ended up this way. When she came to the city to pick up her nephew, the aunt and the little boy came knocking on my door.
I heard you took really good care of him. Thank you. Thank you very much.
She handed me a white envelope with a stack of cash in it. Oh no, that wasn't the reason why I was helping him.
He has told me all about you and everything you did for him. That the lunchboxes and sandwiches you left for him was the best food he ever had. Thanks to your kindness, this little boy's body and soul were saved. So please, accept this.
I was a little embarrassed, but I graciously accepted it. Just in case, we exchanged contact information before we parted ways. A few months later, I got an email from that aunt. It turns out that the little boy fit in with his new siblings immediately, and that every day, he's laughing and crying and fighting with them. She wrote that every day, he seems to be living his life to the fullest. At the bottom, she wrote, "Thank you," and attached a photo of the entire big family posing together. No matter how you looked at that photo, it was obvious that the little kid was part of the family, and it made me happy to see.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.